The night sky was wide and endless, filled with silver stars that shined over the dark forest. She sat alone on the edge of a high cliff, her eyes fixed on the heavens above. She was not like the others in her village. While her people worked, traded, and lived their normal lives, she always felt different. She always wanted more. Her name was Lyra, and since childhood she had dreamed about strange stories, old tales, and forbidden legends. And among all those legends, one name always stood out. Humans. Her teachers told her that humans were nothing more than a warning story. They told children that humans once came from the stars, bringing war and destruction, and that their kind had driven them away forever. For her people, humans were a myth, a shadow from the past, a word spoken only to scare the young. But Lyra never fully believed those stories. Deep inside, she always thought that the truth was hidden. And that night, while the wind moved through the trees and the moonlight touched her face, something happened that would change her life forever. At first, she thought it was only the sound of the forest. A branch breaking, a low step in the grass, maybe an animal moving nearby. But then she heard a different sound. A slow, steady rhythm, heavier than the movement of any creature she knew. She held her breath, her eyes scanning the dark trees. The shadows shifted, and for one brief second she saw it. A figure. It stood taller than anyone from her world. Its shoulders were broad, its shape strong, and its movements careful but powerful. The light of the moon touched its face, and she froze where she sat. Two eyes, brighter than she expected, looked back at her. They were not like the eyes of her people. They were sharp, focused, and filled with something she had never seen before. She did not understand the feeling in her chest. Fear mixed with awe, confusion mixed with curiosity. Her heart raced. Every story, every warning, every whispered legend came back to her mind. She remembered the voices of her elders telling her that humans were monsters who destroyed whole worlds. She remembered the stories of cities burning, of skies filled with fire, of children crying in fear. But the figure in front of her did not look like a monster. He looked tired. He looked real. She could not move. She wanted to run back to her village, but her feet would not obey. She wanted to speak, but no words left her lips. The figure stayed silent, his eyes never leaving hers. And then, in the silence of the night, he moved. He raised one hand slowly, not in threat, but in a quiet gesture. A greeting. Her breath shook as she took a step backward. Her mind screamed at her to escape. But her heart whispered something else. Do not run. Look closer. The figure stepped into the moonlight, and her doubts vanished. The shape of his face, the build of his body, the way he carried himself, this was not one of her kind. This was not a trick of the forest. This was not her imagination. This was a human. The moment stretched endlessly, like time itself had stopped. She wanted to ask questions, but fear sealed her lips. Who was he? Why was he here? How could this be possible? Humans were supposed to be gone forever. They were not supposed to exist anymore. And yet, one stood in front of her now. Finally, her voice returned, weak and trembling. She whispered, almost to herself, but loud enough for him to hear. You are real. The human did not answer. His expression was calm, but his eyes carried something deep, something old, like he had seen too much, like he carried heavy memories. For a brief second, she thought she saw sadness in his gaze. A cold wind moved through the forest, and she blinked. When her eyes opened again, the figure was gone. The space where he had stood was empty, as if he had never been there at all. The silence of the night returned, and the only sound left was the beating of her heart. She stood frozen for a long moment, unable to believe what she had seen. Had her mind created the vision? Was it only a dream shaped by her endless curiosity? But no. She could still feel the weight of his stare. She could still see the faint glow of his eyes in her memory. Her hands shook as she whispered to herself again, this time with more strength. Humans are real. I saw one. The words felt heavy, like forbidden fire on her tongue. If anyone in her village heard her say that, they would call her a liar. They would call her cursed. But Lyra knew the truth now. Her life could never return to normal. Something had changed inside her, something that no one could take away. She turned her eyes back to the sky, where the stars still shined bright. She wondered how many humans lived out there among those endless lights. She wondered why one of them had come here, to her world. She wondered if she would ever see him again. Her heart beat with fear, but also with something new. Hope. And she did not know it yet, but from that night forward, her world would never be the same. The next morning felt different for Lyra. The sun rose as it always did, bright and golden, but to her eyes the world no longer looked the same. She walked through the village streets, hearing the voices of merchants calling out, children laughing, and workers carrying their tools. Everything seemed normal. But inside her, nothing was normal anymore. She had seen a human. She had seen the impossible. All through the day she tried to convince herself that it was only a dream. Maybe the night air had played tricks on her mind. Maybe her hunger for stories had created an illusion. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face again. His tall figure, his glowing eyes, the way he raised his hand toward her. It was real. She was certain of it. Her people would never believe her. If she spoke about what she had seen, they would laugh at her. Some might even accuse her of lying or of breaking the old laws. Their leaders had made it clear, talk of humans was forbidden. And yet, the thought of silence was unbearable. Her mind burned with questions. Why was he here? What did it mean? Was he the last of his kind, or were there more? That night, when the village slept, Lyra made her choice. She wrapped herself in a dark cloak and left quietly, moving through the forest paths under the silver light of the moon. Her heart pounded with every step, but her curiosity was stronger than her fear. She returned to the cliff where she had seen him. She stood there for a long time, staring into the trees, hoping. The forest was alive with the sounds of insects and rustling leaves, but no human appeared. Hours passed, and she began to think he would never come again. But then, just when her hope began to fade, she heard it. That same sound from before, the heavy steps, slow and steady, moving closer. Her breath caught in her throat. She turned toward the sound, and her eyes widened. He was there again. The human stepped from the shadows, taller than she remembered, his eyes fixed on her with the same sharp focus as before. This time, she did not run. This time, she gathered her courage. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. For a moment, he did not answer. He studied her, as if deciding whether to trust her. Then, in a low, deep voice, he spoke. "I am no one. I am a ghost of a war your people tried to erase." His words sent a chill through her. "A war?" she asked. "But our history says humans destroyed worlds. They brought fire and death." The man shook his head slowly. "That is the story they want you to believe. But stories can be twisted. Lies can live longer than truth." Her heart raced. She wanted to deny it, but something about his voice made her believe. "Why are you here?" she whispered. He stepped closer, his movements calm but heavy, like a man who carried 1,000 burdens. "Because you must know," he said. "Your leaders fear us. They fear what humans truly are. Not because we destroy, but because we fight for freedom." His words struck her like lightning. She had never heard anyone speak this way before. For so long she had felt something was wrong with the stories, something missing. And now, standing before her, a living human was telling her that the truth had been buried. Her voice shook. "If this is true, then why show yourself to me? I am no one." The human's eyes softened, only for a moment. "Because you still ask questions. And questions are more dangerous than weapons." Before she could answer, a sharp sound cut through the night. A metallic echo, like boots striking against stone. Lyra's blood turned cold. From the shadows of the trees, she saw faint lights, searchlights, moving slowly. Voices called out, harsh and commanding. "Soldiers." The human's expression turned hard. "They are searching for me," he said in a low voice. "If they find me, they will kill me. If they see you with me, they will kill you too." Her breath caught. Fear surged inside her. She should run. She should escape before it was too late. And yet, she could not move. She looked at him, standing calmly even as danger closed in, and something inside her made its choice. The soldiers drew closer, their voices rising. Lyra grabbed the human's arm, pulling him toward a narrow cave hidden in the rocks near the cliff. "This way," she whispered urgently. For the first time, surprise flickered across his face. He followed her without a word, moving silently as they slipped into the shadows. The cave was small and dark, but it hid them well. They waited there, pressed against the cold stone, as the soldiers searched the forest outside. Minutes felt like hours. The voices grew louder, then slowly faded. The lights moved away, swallowed by the trees. Silence returned, heavy and tense. Lyra let out the breath she had been holding. Her hands shook, her heart thundered. She looked at the human, and in his eyes she saw something strange. Respect. "You should not have helped me," he said quietly. "Now your life is tied to mine." She swallowed hard, realizing the weight of her choice. She had broken every rule, risked everything, for someone her people called an enemy. But deep inside, she knew she would do it again. The forest was silent once more, but her world had changed. There was no turning back. The cave was cold and silent, but inside it Lyra felt heat rising in her chest. She sat near the wall, her cloak wrapped tightly around her shoulders, while the human remained across from her. His figure was calm, unmoving, like a statue carved from stone. His eyes glowed faintly in the dark, watching her, but not with anger. With something else. Neither of them spoke for a long time. The only sound was the slow dripping of water from the rocks above. Lyra's heart beat fast. She had just risked her life for him. She had hidden him from her own people, the soldiers of her land. The thought made her hands tremble. Finally, she broke the silence. "Tell me who you are," she said in a low voice. "Not a ghost. Not a shadow. I need to know the truth." The man tilted his head slightly, studying her. Then he spoke, his voice deep and steady. "My name is Kale. Long ago, I was a soldier. I fought in the war between humans and your rulers." Her breath caught. The forbidden war. The war that no one was allowed to speak of. The war her people claimed humans had started. She leaned forward. "Why are you here, Kale? If humans lost, why stay on this world?" Kale's gaze turned distant, as if he were looking at memories far away. "Because not all humans escaped. Many were killed. Some were captured. I was one of them. But I broke free. Since then, I have lived in the shadows, watching your people hide the truth." Lyra's mind spun. If what he said was true, then everything she had been taught was a lie. "But why hide the truth?" she whispered. Kale's eyes hardened. "Because truth gives power. If your people knew what really happened, if they knew humans did not come to conquer but to protect the weak, then your rulers would lose control. Fear is their weapon. Lies are their shield." His words echoed inside her like thunder. She wanted to deny them, but deep inside, she could not. For years she had felt something was wrong. For years she had seen fear in her elders' eyes whenever humans were mentioned. Now she began to understand why. But, if humans came to protect, why did the war begin at all? She asked. Kale's voice grew heavy. Because freedom always demands a price. Your rulers enslaved worlds, stripped them of life and resources. Humans stood against them. We fought not to rule, but to stop them. And for that, we became their greatest enemy. Her breath shook. She tried to imagine the scale of such a war, stars burning, fleets of ships in battle, worlds torn apart. She had only ever seen her small village, her quiet forests. The thought of humans fighting across galaxies felt like something from a dream. Kale looked at her closely. "I should not be telling you this. If you repeat my words, you will be hunted, just like me. Do you understand that?" Lyra nodded slowly, though fear twisted inside her. She knew he was right. But still, she needed to know. "Then why tell me at all?" For the first time, his voice softened. "Because you did not run. You saw me, and you did not turn away. That means there is hope in you." Her chest tightened at his words. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. No one had ever looked at her as if she mattered. Before she could answer, a faint noise echoed from the forest outside, the metallic clink of armor, the crack of branches under boots. Soldiers again. Kale moved quickly, stepping toward the entrance of the cave. His expression was sharp now, his body tense like a predator ready to fight. Lyra grabbed his arm. "No," she whispered. "If they find you, they will kill you." Kale gave a grim smile. "They have tried before." She shook her head fiercely. "You cannot fight them all. Please, let me think." Her mind raced. If the soldiers searched too closely, they would discover the cave. Her people had sharp eyes, sharp ears. Hiding forever was impossible. But then she remembered something, the old tunnels beneath the cliff. Few villagers even knew they existed. They were ancient mining paths, long abandoned. If she led him there, they could escape unseen. "I know another way," she whispered urgently. "Follow me." Kale hesitated, his eyes searching hers. Then, with a small nod, he followed. Together they moved deeper into the cave, crawling through narrow cracks in the stone until they reached a hidden tunnel. Dust and broken wood filled the air, but the path stretched far beneath the earth. They walked for what felt like hours, their footsteps echoing softly. Finally, they emerged into an open cavern where the ceiling glowed with faint crystals. The light reflected in Kale's eyes, making them shine even brighter. Here, in the silence of the hidden world, Lyra turned to him. "You cannot stay here forever. What will you do?" Kale reached into his cloak and pulled out a small device, no bigger than her palm. It flickered with soft blue light. "This is a human memory core. Inside it is the truth, records, images, voices. Proof of what really happened." Lyra's eyes widened. "You kept it all this time?" He nodded. "If your people saw this, they would know the lies. They would know who we really were." Her hands shook as she looked at the glowing device. She knew what it meant. If this was real, it could change everything. It could free her people from fear. But it could also bring chaos, war, maybe even destruction. Her mind filled with questions, her heart with fear. Kale's eyes met hers, steady and unshaken. "The choice will be yours," he said. "Will you keep the lie, or will you show them the truth?" Lyra stood frozen, her heart pounding. She had wanted answers, and now she had them. But answers came with weight, and the future of her world might rest on her shoulders. The glowing device rested in Kale's hand, its blue light flickering against the cavern walls. Lyra could not take her eyes off it. That small object seemed to hold the power to shake the foundations of her world. The truth, locked inside a human memory core. Proof that everything she had been taught since childhood might be a lie. Her breath came fast, her heart heavy with fear. She wanted to reach out, to hold it, but her fingers refused to move. Her people had been warned all their lives, never trust humans, never touch their relics. To do so was forbidden. Yet here she was, staring at the very thing she was told to fear. Kale's voice broke the silence. "If this truth is revealed, your rulers will lose control. They will fight to bury it again. And they will not hesitate to kill you for standing with me." Lyra swallowed hard. She thought of her family, her village, the people she loved. If she chose to carry this truth, they could all suffer. She thought of the soldiers outside, ready to hunt Kale down. If she chose to protect him, she would be branded a traitor. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "Why me? Why give me this choice? I am no leader. I am only one girl." Kale stepped closer, his expression firm but calm. "Because one voice can be stronger than an army when it speaks the truth. I cannot do this alone. But you, your people will listen to you before they listen to me." She shook her head quickly. "No. They will not believe me. They will call me a liar." "Perhaps," Kale said, his eyes steady. "But when the memory speaks, they cannot deny it. They will see with their own eyes what really happened." Lyra's hands clenched into fists. Fear screamed inside her to walk away, to forget, to return to her normal life. But deep inside, another voice spoke louder. The same voice that had driven her to seek answers, the same voice that had told her not to run when she first saw Kale. That voice whispered, "This is your moment." She lifted her chin slowly. "If I take this truth to the city, will you come with me?" Kale hesitated. His eyes seemed to carry the weight of years. "Yes. But understand this, once we step into the city together, there will be no turning back. You will be hunted, and so will I." Lyra nodded. Her choice was made. But before they could move, the sound of metal rang from the tunnels behind them. Heavy footsteps, voices shouting orders. The soldiers had found the cave. Cale's eyes narrowed. He slipped the device back into his cloak and motioned for silence. They pressed themselves against the cavern wall as the footsteps grew louder. The glow of torches lit the passage, and armored figures began to pour into the cavern. "There!" one of them shouted. "The human is inside." Cale grabbed Lyra's arm, pulling her toward a narrow path that led deeper into the tunnels. They ran, the sound of pursuit echoing behind them. Lyra's lungs burned, her legs shaking, but she did not stop. She could hear the soldiers' weapons powering up, the sharp hum of energy ready to strike. The path twisted and turned until they reached an opening that led outside. Moonlight spilled over them as they burst from the tunnel onto the rocky slopes beyond the cliff. Cale pushed Lyra ahead of him. "Run," he ordered. They raced down the slope, stones scattering beneath their feet. A beam of energy shot past them, burning the ground. Lyra gasped but kept running, her cloak whipping behind her in the wind. Cale turned, firing a small weapon of his own. Bright flashes lit the night as he covered their escape. Soldiers shouted, their voices full of rage, but Cale's fire drove them back for a moment. Finally, when they reached the safety of the forest below, Cale caught up to her. His face was hard, but his voice was calm. "They will not stop now. They know you helped me. They will hunt you as they hunt me." Lyra's chest heaved as she tried to catch her breath. "Then we have no choice. We must go to the city before they silence us." Cale gave a small nod. "Then that is our path." They moved through the forest in silence, the night thick around them. Every shadow felt like a threat, every sound like a hunter waiting to strike. But despite the danger, Lyra felt a strange fire inside her. For the first time in her life, she was no longer just a curious girl. She was carrying a truth that could change everything. Hours passed until they reached the edge of the great city. Towers of stone and metal rose high, lights glowing in the darkness. Guards patrolled the gates, weapons shining in their hands. Lyra's heart sank. Getting inside would not be easy. Cale watched the gates carefully. "They will recognize me. If they see me, they will attack at once." Lyra bit her lip. An idea formed in her mind, dangerous but possible. "Then we will not go through the gates. I know another way." He raised an eyebrow. "Another way?" She nodded. "When I was a child, I explored the old aqueducts beneath the city. They are forgotten now, but some tunnels still remain open. We can slip inside without being seen." Cale's eyes softened with faint amusement. "You are full of secrets." Lyra managed a small, nervous smile. "Curiosity has always been my curse." Together, they moved toward the hidden path. The city loomed above them, bright and silent, unaware of the storm about to break within its walls. As they slipped into the darkness of the aqueduct, Lyra's thoughts raced. The memory core was hidden inside Cale's cloak, but soon its secrets would be revealed to all. She was afraid, but she also felt something new, strength. And somewhere deep inside, she knew the moment of truth was coming. The aqueducts were dark and damp, water dripping from the stone walls as Lyra and Cale moved quietly through the narrow tunnels. Rats scurried away at their footsteps, and the air smelled of mold and rust. But Lyra knew the path well. As a child, she had wandered here many times, pretending she was exploring lost worlds. Now, she truly was. Cale followed close behind, silent and watchful. He moved with the careful steps of someone trained to survive in shadows. Lyra could feel the weight of the memory core hidden in his cloak. Every second brought them closer to the moment when its secret would be revealed. At last, the tunnel opened into a grate beneath the central city square. Through the bars, Lyra saw hundreds of people moving about, merchants shouting, guards patrolling, children laughing. The city looked calm, but she knew the storm was coming. Cale's voice was low. "If we are to reveal the truth, it must be here. In the heart of your people. Where all can see." Lyra's stomach twisted with fear. She imagined the faces of her family, her neighbors, the elders of her village. If she stood before them and spoke of humans as protectors, would they believe her? Or would they turn on her as quickly as the soldiers had? Still, She knew there was no turning back. She nodded. Then let's do it. With Kale's help, she forced open the grate, and together they climbed up into the square. People turned to look at them, curious at first. Then whispers began to spread. Murmurs of fear followed Kale's tall figure. Some recognized him at once. Others only felt the unease of his presence. Human, someone whispered sharply. Impossible, another said. Guards began to move forward, hands on their weapons. Lyra stepped quickly in front of Kale, raising her voice as loud as she could. Wait. Do not strike. Listen first. Her voice carried across the square, and people stopped in their tracks. Even the guards hesitated. Lyra's heart pounded, but she pushed her fear down. This man is not what you were told, she said, her voice trembling but strong. You were taught that humans are destroyers, that they came to burn our worlds. But I have seen him. I have spoken with him. And I tell you this, everything you were taught is a lie. Gasps spread through the crowd. Some shook their heads, others leaned closer. The guards lifted their weapons higher, their leader shouting, Silence, girl. Do not spread heresy. Kale stepped forward then, pulling the memory core from his cloak. The blue light glowed bright against the stone square. His deep voice cut through the noise. If you will not listen to her words, then listen to your own history. He activated the device. A beam of light shot upward, forming a glowing image above the square. People gasped and shielded their eyes as the air filled with voices and visions from the past. They saw fleets of human ships fighting not to conquer, but to defend alien civilians trapped under the rule of cruel masters. They saw humans pulling children from burning cities, shielding the weak with their own bodies. They saw rulers giving orders to erase these truths, rewriting the records so only the lies remained. The crowd stood frozen, eyes wide with shock. The guards themselves hesitated, their weapons trembling in their hands. For the first time, the lies of centuries cracked before the eyes of the people. Lyra's voice rang out again. You see it now. Humans were not destroyers. They were protectors. And they still are. But before the moment could grow, the ground shook with the march of heavy boots. A line of soldiers stormed into the square, led by officers in black armor. Their leader's voice roared. Seize them. Destroy the device. Do not let the lies spread. Chaos exploded. People screamed and scattered. Some tried to shield their children, others ran for safety. The soldiers surged forward, weapons blazing. Kale grabbed Lyra's hand, pulling her behind a fountain for cover as blasts of energy tore through the square. The memory core flickered, the images shaking but still burning above the city. Lyra watched in terror as soldiers smashed through the crowd, trying to destroy it. Kale fired back with his small weapon, his movements sharp and precise, protecting her as much as he could. Hold it up, he shouted to her. Do not let them take the truth. Her hands shook as she lifted the core high, the light shining even brighter. Look, she cried to the people. Look with your own eyes. Do not believe their lies any longer. Voices began to rise among the crowd. Some shouted in fear, but others shouted in anger not at her, but at the soldiers trying to silence her. Stones flew from the hands of civilians, striking the armored men. A wave of resistance spread through the square. The soldiers faltered, their line breaking as the people began to push back. The truth had ignited something that could not be controlled. Kale moved beside Lyra, his voice steady even in the chaos. This is the beginning. You cannot stop it now. Speak, Lyra. Speak louder than their weapons. She climbed onto the fountain, holding the memory core high above her head, her voice ringing out with all her strength. They lied to us for centuries. But no more. Humans are real, and they are not our enemy. They are the proof that freedom cannot be destroyed. The crowd roared, their voices drowning out the soldiers. The truth was out, alive and unstoppable. But Lyra knew this was only the beginning. The square was filled with fire and light. Shouts echoed against the stone walls, mixing with the sharp blasts of weapons and the roar of the people. Lyra stood on the fountain, the memory core glowing bright in her hands. Its images filled the air, fleets of ships, burning skies, humans protecting the weak, humans standing against cruel rulers. No one could deny it now. The truth was alive, shining in front of every eye. The soldiers fought desperately, trying to silence it. But for the first time, the people did not run in fear. They pushed back. They threw stones, they grabbed poles, they blocked the soldiers' path. The city that had lived in silence for so long was now shouting with one voice. Cale stood near the fountain, firing carefully, his movements calm even as chaos surrounded him. His eyes never left Lyra. She was the one who carried the truth now. She was the one who gave her people the courage to rise. The soldiers' leader shouted orders, his armor black as night, his weapon glowing with deadly energy. He pointed at Lyra. "Seize her. Destroy the device." Several soldiers charged toward the fountain. Lyra's heart pounded as she held the memory core higher. She felt hands grabbing at her legs, but before they could pull her down, Cale was there. He moved like a storm, striking them down, protecting her with every step. "Do not stop," he shouted to her. "They must hear you until the end." Lyra's voice rang out, breaking through the noise. "Do you see now? They feared humans not because we destroy, but because we fight for freedom. And they fear freedom more than anything." The crowd roared. Her words lit a fire inside them. More civilians joined, pushing against the soldiers. The square became a battlefield, but it was no longer one-sided. For every soldier who struck, 10 voices rose in defiance. The memory core pulsed brighter, its light spreading across the city like a beacon. Lyra felt its energy in her hands, almost alive, as if the voices of the past were lending her strength. She saw faces of humans in the projection, men and women fighting bravely, protecting others, sacrificing themselves for hope. And in their eyes, she saw the same fire that now burned in her own. The soldier's leader raised his weapon toward her, fury in his face. A bolt of energy burst forward. Lyra flinched, but before it could strike her, Cale threw himself in front of the blast. The light hit his chest, and he staggered back, falling to one knee. "Cale!" she cried, reaching for him. He looked up at her, his face pale, but his eyes steady. "Do not stop, Lyra. The truth is stronger than me. Stronger than all of us. Speak for them." Tears burned her eyes, but she lifted the core again, her voice breaking yet strong. "This is the truth they wanted to bury. But we will not let them. We will not live in lies anymore." The people surged forward with renewed fury. They overpowered the soldiers, tearing their weapons away, pushing them back. The leader shouted in rage, but the crowd swallowed him, their voices louder than his orders. The battle was over. The soldiers retreated, their power broken, their lies exposed. Silence fell at last, heavy and trembling. The square was filled with people staring at Lyra, their faces lit by the fading glow of the memory core. They looked at her not with fear, but with hope. Cale lay against the fountain, his breath shallow. Lyra rushed to his side, clutching his hand. "Stay with me," she whispered. He gave a faint smile. "You did it. You gave them the truth. That is all that matters." Her tears fell as she shook her head. "You cannot leave now. They need you. I need you." His hand tightened weakly around hers. "No. They do not need me. They need you. The truth must live in you now. Promise me, you will carry it." Her throat ached, but she nodded. "I promise." His eyes softened, the weight of countless years fading. Then, with one final breath, he closed them. Lyra sat frozen, her heart breaking. Around her, the people bowed their heads in silence. They had seen his sacrifice. They had seen his truth. And in that moment, they understood. She rose slowly, holding the memory core close to her chest. The light faded, but its power remained. She looked at the crowd, her voice steady even through her grief. "This is not the end. This is the beginning. We will no longer live in lies. We will no longer fear the truth." The people raised their voices in answer, shouting with strength, with hope. The city that had been silent for centuries now roared with freedom. As the sun rose over the horizon, its light touched the towers of the city. Lyra stood on the fountain, her cloak torn, her heart heavy, but her spirit unbroken. She had seen a human once, and everything had changed forever. And far above, among the endless stars, unseen eyes watched. Humans were still out there, waiting, listening. And one day, they would return.